Hey everyone, hope you're doing well. Frankie, it's been a week, but a lot has happened. I mean, stuff has happened and become old news since I last spoke to you. It's been a bit of a roller coaster being a West Ham fan, but big news as well, big changes at the club now.
Yeah, it's all change. Obviously, we finally got the confirmation that we all longed for. I think that was probably some of the biggest frustrations of people, just not knowing what the situation was. So we finally got, the news that everybody needed. And hopefully now, mate, we can all move on. Oh, I've said mate already, but I get dug out for saying mate on here, mate. So I'm going to start doing a fine for how many mates that I do throughout the thing, and we'll have to give it to a charity, mate.
Right, thanks for that, pal. Anyway, there you go. There's your Scottish version. The confirmation came last night, obviously, that Moyes is going. It was one of relief for me. Not so much relief that he was going. I think I knew he was going, but relief that it's come now and not after the Man City game, and that actually common sense has prevailed at the club, and they've decided to do it ahead of the final home game of the season against Luton. Because I was sort of dreading the weekend's game, because I thought you'd almost be forcing fans to voice your opinion. So the last chance you can do it. Moyes might be staying, he might not be staying. According to us, the club, that's our official line. Do you want to applaud Moyes? I think you're basically forcing fans a little bit. So, well, actually, no, we're going to boo him because we're not necessarily booing what he's done over the last 4.5 years. We're booing the fact that we don't want him to be here anymore. So now that we've been given clarity, the final decision's been made. Actually, I'm looking forward to Saturday more than I was yesterday or the previous day or something, because it does feel like it becomes a bit of an event, really. It's an end of season event now because of that clarity. So I was relieved it came through, and it came through last night. And things are sort of moving quickly. Obviously, Julen Lopetegui is sort of expected, I think is fair to say, the next West Ham manager. Fabrizio Romano reaffirming today that he will be the next West Ham manager, and they're just ironing out the final details. What do you make of this appointment?
Well, it's an interesting
appointment. Let me just throw in a disclaimer there. Potential appointment.
I think that it's probably the most obvious appointment that we could have made. I think the connections that are there between agents and certain personnel, and just the typical type. We said on the previous video that Premier League experience was going to be something that they was really going to cling on to, and I couldn't see them making an appointment that didn't have Premier League experience. And this was just the obvious choice. It's the one that doesn't cost too much money. It doesn't take anything out the ordinary to get this one done. It doesn't take an overcommitment. It doesn't take them to overreach in terms of spending an unusual amount of money to what they're used to spending on a manager. It all just seems to tie in. I'm sure his wages are not going to be cheap. And I'm sure he's not. I see some people bound around the fact that he's the cheap option. He probably isn't going to be the cheapest option that we could have made, but he certainly isn't the most expensive, and he certainly isn't someone that you sort of look at and think, wow, we've pulled up some trees to go and get this man. And I really am inspired and excited by what this manager can do. However, this is where we are. This is the man that's very, very likely going to be coming in. And I'm just trying to look at it from a perspective of what do we need to do now to make this appointment go in the right way and be successful to whatever level of success that can be. I don't think it's going to be massively long term. I don't see him being somebody who's going to be here for the next 5 years. I think it will be a shorter period than that, if I'm totally honest. But can he give us a platform to build upon, and can he give us something that is going to be a more enjoyable 2 to 3 years than what we've just experienced for some? And I know we've all had some amazing nights under, over the last couple of years. But in terms of match day enjoyment, going over and watching West Ham United on a standard week to week basis, how can we get a better level of enjoyment than what we've had previously? And I think there are some ways that we can do that. So if that's the case, then let's move forward.
I think you're right regarding the length of appointment. I believe he's going to be getting around about 4 million a year, which is slightly less than what Moyes is on. And it's going to be a 2-year contract, but there's going to be a clause in there that if he achieves European football in that 2 years, if he wishes, he can automatically have a third year put on the end of it, which makes sense. I think that's fair. A little bit of carrot, a reward for him. So if you get us European football, we'll give you an extra year on your contract, which is obviously essentially worth €4 million to Julen, which I think makes sense. And like you said, it doesn't feel like a long-term one. And I do wonder if this is part of the compromise to Steiden. There's a lot of talk regarding who selected this manager, and nobody's going to convince me that it wasn't David Sullivan. You might be able to change my mind that Steiden's more on board with it than I maybe initially thought, and that Steiden's been given certain promises from Sullivan to try and just make him a little bit more open to Lopetegui being the manager. And David Ornstein said that Lopetegui met Steiden on multiple occasions, and Tim is now impressed with what he's got in a vision for West Ham. I'm open to believing, man. I hope that's true, and I would expect it to be true, because it does feel like he's had his eyes on this job pretty much since he left Wolves, really, and that this has been his dream destination for one reason or another, until the AC Milan one came up. Then he was interested in that one, but it does feel like Lopetegui has been sort of wanting the job once David Moyes goes. And that maybe is something I've overlooked over the last few weeks in my sort of air of disappointment that is maybe not a more preferred manager for myself, because this guy does want it and he does feel prepared. And when he has done his presentations, he probably is pretty clued up on West Ham, because if he has been targeting this one, you'd imagine he's done his homework. And there's a lot of talk that he's attended multiple games at the London Stadium this season already. I'm inclined to believe that as well. Probably not the only one, but there's been other people there. In regards to sort of, you were saying you're looking at it as to what he can do or what we can do going forward to make it more enjoyable. What do you come up with then, Frankie? What's the conclusions of your little investigation?
Well, other than the fact that other than money and other than status, I really do struggle to believe that he's looked at West Ham and said, that's a project that I want to be part of. And I guess a big part of that is the fact that the way he plays football is quite often using wide players, especially defensive wide players, to start the attack, overlap, and allow the wide attackers to drift inside. Now, he's kind of previous fullbacks that he's had to his disposal have been Danilo, Alexandro. He's had Jordi Alba, Carvajal, Marcelo, and these are the players that he's always really relied upon to play the style of football that he would like. I'm not sure he sat there in the stands looking at Cresswell, looking at Soufal and thinking, these two are going to be players that I'm going to have bombing up and down the lines, overlapping, allowing Bowen and Kudus to drift inside and whatever. So, I mean, that is the biggest part of his play, right back to, you know, when he was at Porto and also through his Spain and even Seville. That is kind of his most important part of his play, are those wide defensive players. And not only do they have to be very good at attacking, because of the transition and the way he plays his formations, they have to also be very, very good at defending as well. And one of the places where he come a little bit unstuck at Wolves was the fact that he had Semedo, who may have been used to that Spanish style of football and the way Lopetegui plays football. However, they got caught out on his side of the pitch over and over and over again because he's just poor defensively. So looking at that, that's why I'm quite surprised that he would look at that squad of players and think, I can't wait to get my teeth into that. It certainly can't be because of that reason, because we just don't have the typical type of player that he's used to. And in the formations that he likes to play, I don't think we've got the personnel that he would be sitting there going, I can really see how this would suit my system of play. It's just not there. So I think we will find that for this situation to work out and for him to come and have any success as a West Ham manager, the two positions that we're going to see as being really important throughout the summer are going to be those fullback positions. I just don't see Soufal cutting it, and even Emerson to some degree. He will probably look at Emerson and think, do you know what? When you get forward, you're really good. However, in relying on him to be so up and down, and at times we've seen him almost neglect his defensive duties a little bit when we take the reins off him. He almost forgets that there's a defensive job to be done. I think that would maybe a bit of a worry. So I think one of the key positions and the two main focal points that we're going to have if he's appointed throughout the summer, and for what he's going to have a conversation with Steiten, will be we need to improve those fullback positions. He then also really relies. One of the positive things, I think, is the fact that the type of formation that he plays is very similar to what we've been playing over the last few years. It's not too dissimilar. He likes to play a 4-3-3. It then changes to a 4-2-3-1. We're quite used to being in that sort of shape and formation. So I think it'll be very familiar to the existing squad. And I don't think it'll be too dissimilar to how Moyes lines up, to be perfectly honest. However, he does like to press a bit higher than what we typically have done under David Moyes, almost a mid-block instead of a low block. But that normally relies on quite agile sort of CDM players that can be quite aggressive and accelerate into a press. Now, that's really going to suit Alvarez. I think Alvarez is going to shine under the way he plays. I think that's great. And I also think that even to some degree, we may get away with it under James Ward-Prowse. I think that he might be, but Souček is going to be redundant. I just don't see him fitting into the way that this man plays. I think anyone who, I still have been quite a fan of Souček in terms of his commitment and dedication to West Ham, how he behaves. I think he loves West Ham, to be perfectly honest with you. I think he really, really does. And I respect him for that. And he always gives it his best. We all know his limitations, but I think those limitations will be too much for Lopetegui to tolerate any system. In fact, he would become quite he's already a weak link sometimes, Souček. Well, he'll be even more exposed with the way this man plays. So I don't think we'll see much of him. And I think he's, if Lopetegui is appointed, I think his days will be kind of numbered. And that will be the other position that we'll be really focusing on. In terms of, the wide play and the fact that he likes those sort of wingers to drift inside and almost take up sort of inside forward positions, I think Bowen will be all good. I think he'll benefit. I think that's great. He likes a false nine, so he doesn't like to play with an out-and-out striker. I've always screamed that I think if anyone is going to play centrally out of Bowen and Kudus is the one that should be there. And the fact that he will be playing with his back to goal and allowing whoever's on the wide flanks to try and cut inside and get in behind, because he's the central forward has pulled him out of position, the two central defenders. I think Kudus could play that role really well. He likes the ball at his feet. He's great at turning players. I actually think he'd link up with the wide players really, really well. So I think centrally it will suit Kudus massively. But obviously we've then got that glaringly open issue with the left side of the pitch that we just don't have anybody who we could even say is an out-and-out, left wide attacking player. So I think that also will become a key focal point. I think something that might be slightly disappointing to people is that I don't think a striker will be even in anywhere near the top of the list for players that we need to bring in. I think there's other areas that they'll see as far more important to play in the way that he likes to play. I think he will look at, can I use Kudus or Bowen there? And I really hope it's Kudus and not Bowen, because I just think Bowen's better facing goal and getting at people, and Kudus is more comfortable with his back to goal. But also that wide left player is going to be really key. So I just think, we need to back him. We know that there are certain ways in the way that he plays that we need to address. And if we don't address them, the problem that we're going to have is he very quickly reverted to a low block at Wolves when he felt he didn't have the players that he needed to play the way he normally plays. And if he doesn't get supported and he doesn't get the players that he needs to play how he likes to play, we will see a very similar style to David Moyes, in that the low block will be put in there. We will have two very deep line central midfielders, and it would almost look like a carbon copy. And Wolves did revert to that multiple times when he was there. When he felt like the other team was a defensive team, and sat in a low block. He was very happy to be more progressive, more attacking and get at teams. As soon as he felt he didn't have the right personnel to cope with the opposition, his immediate answer was low block, low block, low block. So that, I think, is the key thing that we need to do for him. Is the transfer window is going to be massive. It's going to be so important and key to giving him the players. And not only that, we know at the end of the Wolves sort of reign, he turned around and said, well, you know, I don't have the players to do what I want here. And that's where it all fell down. And that sort of attitude going into Sullivan just isn't going to wash. If he felt he had an issue with that at Wolves, well, he's going to get a massive, massive shot going into Sullivan's door and banging on that door and saying, look, I need X, Y, and Z. So I hope that Stuyton is the man that will communicate with him. I hope that they will. I have a feeling that they may have already been discussing what players are needed already, and that these sort of players might already be in place and already on a list somewhere. And hopefully Stuyton's already doing his job, mate, because there's another mate in there for a fine mate. But hopefully that's all been, and we can go and get business done earlier than what we normally do, because we don't want to get to that stage where we're leaving things late again, because, you know, we end up with just any old player, any old whatever we can get our hands on. And then Sullivan starts flexing himself and saying, oh, I'll pick this player out. If you're struggling, here's a Danny Ings or here's a whatever. So, yeah, can it come good? I think it can. I think the way he plays, if we give him the right personnel, it will be more possession based, which is what we're asking for. Is it going to be free flowing attacking football? I don't quite think it will be. But the pattern of play that he lines up with is obvious to see. I think will be far more drilled tactically than what we've seen in a long time. And I think that's going to be a real positive thing. And we just got to give him the right men. And if we can give him the right men, I actually think for the next couple of years, this could all go all right.
Yeah, in a couple of weeks, once this has been confirmed, if it gets confirmed, which I expect it to, and apparently the club are not going to announce it until after the Man City game. Weirdly, out of respect to David Moyes, because I feel that everything's been sort of out in the open at the minute, and they're a little bit embarrassed as to how open it's been, and they feel it's been a bit of a disrespect to David Moyes. So, but this is where they draw the line. Yeah, we'll speak to other managers, that's fine. But when it comes to announcing, that's too far. But apparently it'll be after Man City. So if you're maybe don't expect an announcement for another couple of weeks yet on Lopetegui, should it be done. But we'll all know it's done, even if they haven't said anything. So I think they're just holding their horses a little bit. It might be that the club are just delaying it a little bit, just in case there's somebody else out there that's better than, and maybe they know they've got him ready to sign. Just check, make sure that is the guy we want to go with. But my point is, once it's announced, myself and Gonzo do a little video, the 3 players we think will benefit from Lopetegui. I've already gave it away on Patreon. Frankie mentioned him kind of. James Ward-Prowse. I think he'll love Ward-Prowse. A 95% pass success rate midfielder. Lopetegui doesn't mind the sideways and backwards stuff. He doesn't mind it. He likes having the ball. If we've got the ball, they can't score. So I think he will love James Ward-Prowse in there. And we're also going to do 3 players each that we think will struggle. And Souček's top of my list as well. For the exact reasons, I think Ward-Prowse will do well under him. I think Souček won't do well under him. It'll be a case of there's the ball, move it quick. Okay. So there'll be players that benefit, and there'll be players that miss out. As every club, whenever there's a managerial change, it happens. It's not a big issue. I do wonder though, because regarding fullbacks, because when he was at Wolves, he tried to sign Cresswell. So I think he must see something in him. And I guess for the possession-based football, I think Cresswell's really good at that aspect of it. It's just, does he have the athletic side anymore to get up and down? But when I was doing the video a couple of days ago, yesterday, Frankie, and I was speaking about, the penny literally dropped as I was saying it out loud, that maybe this is why we've offered Cresswell a new deal, supposedly a week or 2 ago, that maybe Lopetegui, because I would imagine when he's presenting to Tim Stein and David Sullivan, the squad and the transfers are part of his presentation. I would expect that from a manager, say, here's your current squad, this is what I think about each player, these are the ones I think we should move on. Can't work with them, don't want to work with them prior to meeting them, obviously. But in terms of what I see on the pitch, that's the group of players. Not sure I can work with that lot. These players, their contracts are expiring in a month. I'd like to have them next season. And that might be Creswell, it might be Ben Johnson, might be Bona, might be Mubama. You just don't know. So when I thought about it, I thought maybe this is why we've offered Creswell a deal then. Is it Steiden? Probably not. Is it Sullivan? Again, probably not. But maybe Lopetegui said, no, actually, I want him next season. Get him signed down to another year, please, because then I can work with him, with Emerson, his first choice. And like you said, maybe he's looking at Sufal. I said, I can't work with that, so I'm going to need a new right back. So there goes 20 million already. I can't spend 40 million on 2 fullbacks. Well, maybe we could, but don't know we'll have that big a budget. We should be pretty healthy, though, with Kerr, Benrahma, and Fanalzowski in the last 6 months. And we may get 10 million for Flynn Downs. Maybe he looks at Flynn Downs and thinks, actually, I want him at West Ham. I want to give him a crack at West Ham as well. And also, interestingly, what you were saying about the false nine striker, and that last January when he was at Wolves, he tried to sign Michael Antonio as well.
Yeah. And that's another reason why we won't look for a striker. The fact that he's got the 2 other, Bowen and Kudus, as to switch in there, and Antonio, that will do him. He'll be happy with that.
Yeah, like you said, you can get that left winger sorted, that right-footed left winger that can. And again, it's funny how everything makes you think, doesn't it? And you look back to January transfer window. Who was the player Tim Steiden was pushing for? Abraham Osman, the right-footed left winger that could maybe do this similar job kind of thing. So did Steiden know back in January that Lopetegui was most likely to be the next West Ham manager? We don't know. We will never know, because I'll be honest. I have sympathy that Moyes hasn't been given clarity on this until now. I have a lot of sympathy for him in that regard. I have no sympathy for him the way that we've been speaking to other managers, because Moyes benefited from that. David, when we had Bilic and when we had Pellegrini, we were speaking to David Moyes. And Moyes, when you referred to BN Sports last week, he was sat there before he was doing a punditry for one of the games. And he basically said to him, are you going to replace Slav? And he sat there smirking like, oh, I know. He knew he had the West Ham job, and we sacked him. And then 24 hours later, David Moyes is the manager. So he would have very much been having negotiations with West Ham whilst Slaven Bilic was manager, and then again whilst Manuel Pellegrini was manager. So I appreciate it. I don't think it's the right thing to do, by the way. I think it's classless of David Sullivan, but I just don't have much sympathy towards David Moyes in that regards, because, like I said, he benefited from Sullivan doing that, looking at other managers whilst as a manager. If anything, I think the other 2 situations where Moyes benefited was worse, because that was midway through the season. At least this one, there's a handful of games to go and the contract's actually expiring, whereas Pellegrini and Bilic both got the sack. So Moyes spoke to Sullivan in West Ham, and then the current manager got the boot so that Moyes could come in. So I don't have sort of too much sympathy for Moyes in that regard. Like I said, clarity should have been given to him before this period, but because he's possibly ended up looking a little bit foolish with his public comments, Moyes, saying there's a contract there if I want it, I can sign it if I want, and then turns out there's not a contract for him to sign. He looks a little bit foolish with his comments, but
did he actually say as well that he wasn't making his decision until the end of the season, or was, because if you also say that, then surely you've got to give the club the benefit of the doubt for making sure they've got another plan in place in case you say no. So, but I think a lot of the time we know that a lot of things that he used to say may have came from a position that the club basically say, this is what we need you to be saying right now. And he seemed to always be a man who was very happy to sort of peddle whatever it was that they needed him to peddle at a certain time. So yeah, I think a lot of the times when he come out and said certain things, I think it was very much driven from a top level. And if he's come out and said that, then that makes it even harder to have sympathy with him, because, and that's my argument. I see a lot of these media outlets all sort of saying about how this is really difficult and very hard on him and it's out of order. Well, if he did say those words and he said, I'm not making my decision till the end of the season, then the club has absolutely every right to do what they need to do to make sure they've got a backup in place. So,
and anything else would have been stupid. Could you imagine Sullivan and Steiden sat there doing nothing, and on the 30th of June, Moyes said, oh, by the way, this is my last day of my job. I'm not renewing.
See you later.
1st of July, we've got no manager. Nice one. The club, Steiden, had to go and look for another manager, like you said, because the current one's contract was expiring in 2 months' time. We had to make sure that we had someone in place, even if the club wanted Moyes to sign, even their top priority was Moyes stays on, they had to go find somebody that they could approach should Moyes turn around and say, actually, I don't want to sign anymore. I don't wish to stay here. Right, no problem, Gaffer. We're going to go get the next guy. So, like I said, I think the club's hand was forced. Anyway, lastly, Luton on Saturday, so final home game of the season. Will be the last time we see David Moyes at London Stadium in working capacity in the dugout, unless Lopetegui goes tits up. He might be back in January. Third time lucky. But we might also see certain players for the last time. You're looking forward to the game, to the match, to the day?
I'm not going, Geo.
Oh.
I just can't. I'm struggling to want to go over there and be two-faced and stand there and applaud him when I just don't agree that he deserves an applause. And I will probably be looked upon quite in bad light for that. But I just need to be true to myself and just say that, do you know what? The way that the team have down tools, the way that Moyes has down tools, I just, and the way that he's completely neglected. I really do feel like he's leaving us not in a particularly good place. And I look back at where West Ham were a year ago. And if he'd have walked then, maybe not a year ago, but after the final, if he leaves then, West Ham's status has never been higher. He's going out the door on a high. He has progressed West Ham to a point where he's leaving us in really good light. We've got European football. We're champions and everything else. That's great. And I can understand the argument for why he wouldn't want to leave that. Well, you want to carry on the job. I get that. I understand it. But actually what we found ourselves is in a place with a very old, aging squad with a lot of young players who are completely uninspired and frustrated with the fact that they have been ready for that next step in their career and not been getting opportunities. The fact that he allowed the squad to deplete in January and become where it is now, I just think he's leaving us with a massive, massive, massive job. I look at West Ham now and I see people saying, oh, well, we've progressed as a football club and Moyes has kept us now as a top half Premier League side. And we was 14th last season. We could still quite easily end up in the bottom half this season. We've got no European football. I don't really see us as being that too dissimilar to when he first came on board. I don't see us being this much further forward than I think what some people suggest that we are. And I think with this aging squad that we've got, I'm frustrated with it because I just think every time West Ham have an opportunity to kick on as a football club, we seem to just go backwards. And I've seen it time and time again, and it's really frustrating. And Moyes has allowed it to happen again. We're going into next season without European football. We're going into next season as possibly 2 seasons in a row finishing in the bottom half of the Premier League. We've still got a terrible training ground. We've still got our soulless bowl. Everything about it, I just don't see the development that some people suggest that Moyes has made. I don't think we've got this massive status increase. Yes, we won a trophy, but you know, how many people are out there looking at that and thinking that's the reason why I want to join West Ham as a player? If you know, Stighton's going out there now, he's going and doing his recruitment drive to bring in the players that the new manager wants. How many of those players are looking at it thinking, oh, well, they did win the Conference League 2 seasons ago. I'm not sure it's a driving factor in their decision-making process. So I find it difficult to want to thank him for where he's leaving us. Could I thank him for giving us an amazing night? Yes, but I've had so many frustrating days at West Ham because I'm not the type of person who's only looking for that one night of glory. West Ham's my life. I've done it all my life. It's the thing that I do as a family. It's the thing that I did with my dad. It's the thing that I do with my son. It is the most important thing in life is West Ham. There is nothing more important. If, you know, I was getting married on whatever day and West Ham got to a final, you better believe I'm on the plane and that wedding's cancelled. Like, I'm going to West Ham. That's how important it is to me. It trumps everything. And because of the type of days out that I've had and the difficulty and going to Fulham, dragging my 6-year-old to Fulham in the pouring down rain, and seeing that 5-0 defeat was so frustrating, and seeing him so dejected and disinterested at times because he's, totally frustrated with basically watching football is so uninspiring. I'm really struggling to turn around and say thank you for that. I really am.
I get that. I'll be there and I'll say thank you to him. And it's not for everything. I'm not saying thank you for pissing off Divine Mubama. Thank you for not playing the youngsters. I'm not thanking him for that. I'm thanking him for the memories. I'm thanking him for 3 years of European football. I'm thanking him for winning the trophy. And I know people look down on it, but growing up, I never thought I'd see it, to be honest with you. To be fair, I would say my dream hasn't been accomplished. My dream's to win the FA Cup. We've still not done that. But I've got a bit of it. I've got like the wish.com version of that dream, which is any other trophy. You've got the trophy now. And to be fair, I didn't know if I'd ever see us win a trophy in my lifetime. And sitting here right now, do I think I'll see us win another one? I'm not sure. I hope we do, and I hope it's the FA Cup. I can't comment.
We will, Geo. I'm telling you, we will. I know we will.
I'm going to tell you why I'm not so sure, because some of the things you listed, I can't remember what phrase you said. I was remembering it, and I carried on listening to you. But you said something. It was quite pivotal. And I was going to pick up on that phrase, and it was something along the lines of, "I still don't think we're that much better than where we were," or something. But for me, my answer would be that I lay that at Sullivan's door rather than David Moyes' door, because like the Soulless Bowl, like you said, the training ground and stuff. I struggle to blame Moyes for any of those things. I will blame Moyes for plenty of things, and I think he's certainly contributed at best or worst, depending on how you look at it, to the aging squad. That's definitely an issue. But I think we're in a better place than we were when he took over. We were just outside the relegation zone when he took over. Three campaigns in European football. And when the rumour is that Lopetegui is getting this clause in his contract, which is if you get European football in the next 2 seasons, after Pellegrini, if the next man along, but say it was Lopetegui, got that, I'd have almost laughed and say, what's the point of putting that in there? That's basically saying win the Premier League and you get a 10-year contract or something. It's not happening. It's a pointless thing, right? But actually, today, Lopetegui getting that clause in his contract, it's very feasible that he could go and get European football next season or the season after, because I think the core squad, the 8, 9 players, are a really good standard, really good level. There's a lot of work needed done, granted. But then that's why we've got Tim Steiding to do that work. And so I'll go on Saturday, and I'm glad he's leaving. Would I clap him on Saturday if I didn't know he's leaving? Probably not, because I'd be worried it would be taken as a vote of confidence for the man and be like, hey, look at all these fans clapping him. They want him to stay. No, we're not. Well, that's not why I'm clapping. But I will say thank you to him for the last... I think he stayed a year too long. I would have sacked him during the World Cup myself. I would have liked him to have gone then. Funny enough, ironically, when Lopetegui took over Wolves, because I thought it was the right time to change a manager. I would suggest that Wolves is almost evidence that it was the right time to change a manager. But certainly after the final, I was hoping he would go, and for the reasons you said, just go out on a high, just go out, because he was never going to get better. This season was never going to be better than last season. He would have had to win the Europa League or finish in top 6 of the Premier League. It was unrealistic from the start. He should have went. He stayed a year too long. But again, whilst that is also down to the Moyes, I predominantly blame David Sullivan. I think, well, why did you bottled that decision a year ago when there's enough rumours out there to suggest that he only stayed because he won that trophy, and had we lost in Prague, he would have got sacked, right? And if that's the case, then I'm not sure you should really base a whole year's worth of football on 90 minutes of football. Say, well, because you won that game, yes, we won the trophy, but essentially it's one game of football. Because you won that one game of football, we're going to now keep you for the next year. I just think it was almost too big a reward for winning the trophy. And I'm a fan of the Conference League. I'm not going to insert any more disclaimers. People should know my thoughts on it by now. But it was an easy competition to win. I would expect, and if we win the Conference League next year, I'd be saying Julen Lopetegui has to win the Conference League. He has to. That's the bare minimum. Like Aston Villa, successful if they finish 4th in Premier League, big tick for that. But if they don't win the Conference League, massive cross against Unai Emery, especially against Olympiacos team, who we beat across 2 games in the Europa League group stages. So I'm going to say thank you to Moyes, but it's also going to be a thank you with a sense of relief that he's leaving and a bit of optimism. I'm starting to feel a bit more optimistic about next season than I was a week ago, 2 weeks ago. I'm hoping that the club have got a bit of a plan together in terms of the transfer market. I'm hoping that because I'm a bit contradicted on the timing of their point. I think maybe we're going a bit too soon because other managers may become available in the next month or so. But the advantage is there's no excuse to not be ready for the transfer window opening now. Them two, Lopetegui and Steidten, they can get to work now. We've got the Euros coming up. You don't want to be doing business then. Last summer, we played Bournemouth away in the first game of the season. No new signings. We can't have that. We need to hit the ground running with Lopetegui with his top 2-3 positions filled. Like you said, left wing seems like an obvious one as to where he might feel he needs reinforcements. Make sure we've got that left winger in before the start of pre-season. So wherever we go at the start of the season, probably Man City away. When we go to Man City away on the opening day, the new guy's there. He's bedded in. He's ready to go. There's no excuses not to be ready for the new season now. And it's got me a little optimistic because I think in part of this is because of Moyes. You can disagree if you wish, Frankie. I think a bad season for West Ham next season is to finish 14th. I struggle to see us getting sucked into a relegation battle. I think while I'm not doing cartwheels about Lopetegui, he's not Rafa Benitez or Steve Bruce, right? It's a safe pair of hands. We've got a lot of good players. No European football will be a benefit to Lopetegui next season. And I think a bad season is that we finish at the top or the bottom half of the table. A good season, we qualify for European football again. So I
think we need to be careful. I do think we need to be careful. I don't think it's as clear cut as that. I think if you want to play slightly further up the pitch again, having Zuma as your captain with his knees trying to turn and get back, big problem.
This is all dependent on a good transfer window.
It is, but that's why I have a little bit of a problem with Moyes. We don't just need a good transfer window; we almost need a perfect transfer window, in a sense that we need a centre back who's going to come in and play almost every game. Because I don't think we've got the centre backs available to us now. If Aguerd's going to go, Mavropanos and Zuma is a problem if we want to play higher up the pitch. So we need a centre-back. We need that left winger who's going to come in and hit the ground running. We know that we need probably a right-back that's going to fit his system. So I just think there's quite a lot depending on this transfer window. I think too much. And that's because, for me, the neglect of Moyes over the last few windows. Yes, it's Sullivan. Yes, we understand that his lack of ambition hurts us, and we get that. I just wish Moyes had a bit more of a backbone, that he would have kicked up a bit more of a fuss and basically been the man that we need. Yeah, and that's what I mean. If you're West Ham and you want us to be the best that we can be, go in and kick up a fuss and kick the doors down and say, look, we are in a position where we can move forward as a football club. We need X, Y, and Z. I need these people. Maybe he did do that, and maybe Phillips was the one that he wanted and it just didn't work out. I don't know. But again, that still wasn't good enough for me. So like I say, mate, it will be the first time that I'm not going to a last game of the season West Ham match since I was 5 years old. So it's a very long time for me, but my reason for it is I don't want to be two-faced. I'd struggle to go in there and not applaud if everyone else was giving applause at the end of the match. I wouldn't want to be the idiot who's standing there not applauding him and just, I wouldn't want to be that person who looks like immature and whatever, but I would struggle with it. I'd just rather remove myself from it, start looking forward to this transfer window, because this could be the most exciting transfer window in a long time. Steidten's got full reign. It should be, and we've not been able to get excited about a transfer window for a while. So I'm really looking forward to it. I am massively looking forward to next season, and I think it's good that we can sort of have this as well. That you want to go there and applaud him, and I can understand why, and I can say I'd rather not because I don't want to be two-faced and so on. But ultimately, me and you will both be there on the first game of next season, ready to get behind West Ham again, hopefully all together, all united again, and bring a bit of togetherness back to West Ham and all get behind him and have this new chapter that we're about to go upon. So I'm looking forward to it massively. I'm looking forward to the Euros. I know you haven't got a team to cheer on, but I'm looking forward to it.
We're in the Euros, thank you.
Yeah, but you won't be for long, will you?
Hey, 3 games is better than none.
That's very
a
true.
wise man. I don't know who said it. I'm going to assume he was wise. A wise man once said, "It's the taking part that counts, not the winning." Probably David Moyes that came up with that.
Yeah, that does sound like a Moyesy phrase, to be fair.
Anyway, we'll leave it there. If you've enjoyed this video, please do drop a like on it because it encourages Frankie to come back. Subscribe if you're new to Hammer's Chat. Myself and Frankie will catch up with you next week.